put it,
a link to
put
send.
it up.
So, John is gonna stand here and talk, and his slides will not advance. So I apologize. We thought we had this all worked out, but as what usually happens to us is that doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, can you put this up so I can see this like that? If not, I'll,
Yeah,
if
just a
we
minute.
get- if we get it close, I can look at my.
Thanks for trying.
Oh, I gotta exit out of this.
There you
No.
Can you manually advance the slides on the computer keyboard?
Tried that, didn't work. Right. Okay, so anyway, let me introduce John. I'm Debbie Dillion. I'm the horticulture agent who is not IT person. I think I say that every time when we have problems. But John began planting trees several years ago through his employer's sustainability and community development initiative, which grew into an educational program in local schools. Teaching them about the importance of trees in our local and our world ecology. He serves on the Monroe Parks and Rec Committee, the Monroe Union Breakfast Rotary, and is a founding member of TreesUnion, a 501c3 dedicated to maintaining and improving our tree canopy here in Union County. With Rotary and TreesUnion, he has managed education and planting projects involving the distribution or planting of more than 10,000 trees. So he's the man who planted trees. I'll turn it over to John.
Thank you. You probably noticed that she didn't say PhD arborist anywhere in there. And I think that's going to be a good thing because we're going to talk about a lot of ways to kill trees, and I've done almost all of them. So that's where my experience comes from. Although I do have some redeeming experiences relating to the way we first started planting trees, because Pilgrims sponsored me to go out to the schools where Pilgrims does business. That involved 7 states and a dozen different communities, which gave me a chance to work with arborists and foresters and county rangers. And we would talk to the kids about why trees are important and how to take care of them and to plant them. The cool thing is these guys would always argue with each other. You know, it was, well, I've been doing this for 40 years, or I guarantee my trees, or I've got a PhD. And they bicker and argue and all that kind of stuff. But really, when it came down to the important things, they did them all the same way. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the things that are most important in terms of planting and caring for trees, so that you won't make all the mistakes that I made. And I do have some other qualifications too, but those are the fun ones. Let's see. All the rules about people calling in, I guess that doesn't matter. However, we will send, I assume that we'll make the presentation available to people. You can always contact me after the fact, and I'll be happy to get back with you on any questions you have if you want to send something in for the people online. I am going to give a quick commercial for TreesUnion. TreesUnion is a 3-year-old now, 501c3. Some of you here know it well. That is dedicated to maintaining, increasing, and taking care of the tree canopy here in Union County. We've been doing, planted a few dozen trees so far. What I want to throw out to you now is that this year, because of our communications efforts, a number of communities in Union County are creating their own Arbor Days. Monroe is going to have an Arbor Day. Well, assuming it passes the city council, and I'm 99% sure it's there because it's on the agenda. We'll have an Arbor Day event in Monroe at Dickerson Park. We'll be planting trees on the 11th of October. So if you want to come out and learn how to plant a tree and get a shovel in your hand, that'd be a great way to do it. Other communities, Marvin, Wesley Chapel, we'll be doing that. We'll be doing that also. So much for the commercial. Let's talk about trees. So if you're interested in trees, where should we start? Do we start with planting? What do you think? Planting? No. I'd say no, because here's what happens. I think 90% of trees get planted because someone's going through the garden center at Lowe's and they see a pretty tree and they say, I'm gonna get that tree and take it home because it's pretty. Or you go through your neighbor's yard and you say, I wanna get one of those and put it in my yard. And my guess is most trees get planted that way. And I would say this to relate to that. Why are trees important? They are pretty, so we'll put that on the list. They're pretty, we like them, we like them. But what else do trees do for you? Oh, look at all these answers, great. They provide our oxygen, they also pull other pollutants out of the air. What else do they do? They pollinate as bees, yes, what else? They produce fruit for us to eat, absolutely. What else do they do?
Provide shade.
They provide us with shade.
Feed
Uh,
the caterpillars that feed the birds.
They provide the caterpillars that feed the birds.
They have the squirrels that I don't like.
And how the squirrels it doesn't like. And the foxes that get the squirrels, so there you go. Okay, so trees do all kinds of things for us, and in a more dramatic way than most people think. I mean, someone mentioned shade. A well-covered community will be 20 degrees cooler in the summer than in a community that's all concrete and roofs and roads. And it's not just the shade. If you lick your finger and blow on it, oh, come on, the fourth graders don't mind doing this. It gets cold, right? It gets cold because you're evaporating the water, which pulls the heat from your finger. A big one of these willow oaks that you see out here might aspirate 40,000 gallons of water. So think how much heat is getting pulled away from the ground and sent up above the canopy. I worked for Pilgrims, a big meat producer. Our part of the business didn't do pork and beef, but other parts did. They actually did a study at hog farms and found that a 30-foot tree barrier will eliminate 70% of the smell and the noise from a hog farm. So, and I haven't even talked about erosion control or increasing your property values and all the other things that trees do. So the reason I'm saying that is before we talk about planting, I think it's most important to talk about planning. Why do you want a tree? And before we start talking about putting a tree in the ground, I'd suggest to you that you ask the question, what do I want to accomplish? Do I want to control the erosion on this hill I got in front of my house? Do I want to grow fruit? Do I want to get caterpillars for the birds? What do you want to accomplish? So start with the planning and then go to the planting part. Now, if you go to a landscaper, and we have some great landscapers here. I wish you could see these beautiful pictures of the plans they put together, but in your imagination, they do great things. I mean, they have professional systems that they use to plan out and design for you to accomplish your objectives. They're terrific. They'll show the hardscapes, they'll show existing plants, they'll give you a drawing of what the new plants are going to be, a list, and all of that stuff. I'd suggest to you that you don't need to do all those things for yourself. Get the objective, yes. Find out what you want to do. After that, get a good satellite picture of what the property is that you want to put any plants on. And I've got a bunch of tools that I'll send to you as a part of the presentation that will give you ideas on where you can get those. Most of them will have a ruler that will measure to within a foot of the area that you're wanting to measure. So it's like that. You don't need to go out with a tape measure anymore. You just get it done. So you get the satellite picture. I want to put shade around this 300-foot expanse. I'll figure out what kind of trees I want to put in, and I realize you've got to plant them 35 feet apart. So I've got 300 feet. I know I'm gonna put in 9 trees. It's super simple. So you don't really need to go out and buy the fancy CAD systems that will lay out a plat for you. It's great if, you know, landscapers do a great job. It will be absolutely professional if you want to go that way. Most of the time, you don't need to. You get the key dimensions. Don't forget exposures. The sun's in the south here. We're in the northern hemisphere. So you kind of need to understand when you're laying it out. Does this particular plant want sun, partial shade, or shade? Don't forget to consider that when you're putting your plan together. So after you get your plan and you're ready to start planting trees, and you determine that I'm going to put an oak here. First thing you do is you look up. When I ask the 4th graders, why would they want to look up? They say, what's up there? They say trees. And that's a good answer because some trees are understory trees. They want a tree over the top of them. Others want sun. They don't want a tree over the top. More importantly, and you'll see this all over town, trees planted right under a power line. And they're just going to cut those down. So you look up, you've got to have space up there. Then you look down. Because why would you want to look down? What's down there that's important? What did you say? Wires. Yes, yes. You know, some people say the dirt that you're digging can be important too. But more important than that is that gas line that will take exception to your cutting it. So if you don't take anything else away from what we talked about tonight, take this away. Every time you break ground, call 811. And the people at 811 will be happy to come out and mark all the lines. I let a property owner, a client, talk me out of it once. And she said, I know exactly where all the lines are. It's fine. Do it. We need to get it done today. And I broke down. I said, okay. And sure enough, I cut her cable. And she ran an IT company. So thankfully she was lovely. She said, I talked you into it. It's okay. We got it fixed. We got everything planned the same day. But just don't do it. What if that had been a gas line? I mean, could have been a whole lot worse. So just call 811. Just do it. Okay. So you look up, you look down, and then you look around because trees need room, right? They need room that way. They need room that way too. Got some great pictures. I wish I could show you the pictures of a tree this wide that is exactly this far from the wall of the house. Now, the tree was probably there before the house was, but still, a big mistake that people make is not taking into account the size of the plant that they're putting in, whether it's a tree or a bush or anything else. You got to look around when you put your plant together. So you look up, you look down, you look around, make sure you've got the right amount of room. Then, obviously, well, where to start? So many other things. Once you've got your plan together, again, you start with the purpose. Then you need to go out and determine what species you want, and then take all the other things into account. Please think about what kind of plants you're going to put in. And first of all, please don't plant invasives. Leave the Bradford pears to your great-grandparents, or people my age or whatever, or the mimosas or the Norway maples or I know my wife's favorite tree is the mimosa, but they don't live very long and they take over for as long as they live. Primroses, you see them all through the forest. When the Bradford pears are blooming, if you just look out in the forest, it's going to be solid white in so many places. Those are Bradford pears squeezing out our native trees. So stay away from the invasives as much as you can. And a lot of trees just die. Hardly anybody, well, actually they do. They still sell Leland cypress. But if you drive around town, you see these beautiful rows of Leland cypress trees, which is a pretty tree. They grow fast, make a great border, but they die. One will get sick and then the whole row will go. So be careful of trees that get diseases and the invasives. When you do get ready to plant, Gosh, really need these pictures. And you want to, you figured out, I'm gonna get this tree, I'm gonna get this white oak. How do you pick your tree? Can you still hear me over there if I walk a little bit? People online? They all went to sleep. Okay,
Yes,
okay, I can walk out to here. How do you know it's a good tree? Ask, are you a good tree? Yes, I am. Few rules, few rules. If you're talking about a deciduous tree, I could draw, oh, that would be worse, that would be terrible.
it is kind of difficult to hear you over there.
I won't walk then. If you're talking about a deciduous tree, you look for certain things. You want one lead, you want one lead. Every once in a while, you go out there and get a tree that'll have 3 branches that are all the same size, or the middle one is shorter than the other 2 that are around it. You want one central lead. If you don't, you need to clip some off. You want one tree. The nursery should be doing this for you. The nursery should be pruning the trees as they're growing so that it's got a nice habit when they sell it. You don't always see that. 60% of the height of the tree should be leafed out. In other words, the canopy should cover 60% of the height of the tree. Sometimes you'll see trees that have been pruned all the way up to here. People think it looks good or something. They're really ruining the tree or making it much less capable of thriving. It needs that foliage to grow, and you start working it as it gets bigger and doing the same job that the nursery did to keep that habit strong like it should be. You look at the branches to see if they're intervening branches. If you get one that has some, you want to clip those off. If the branches have a very narrow angle from the trunk of the tree, unless it's a tree that grows that way, and there are a few like that. Usually though, that's not a good thing. You want branches that make a U-junction and come out from the tree and then curve up. That's a much, much stronger connection than those V branches. And I'll explain why that is in a while. So you look for the structure of the tree to make sure it's strong. If they've been, the nursery's been doing their job, that's exactly what it's going to look like. You'll see a tree that may have a trunk this big, but the rest of the 60% is leafed out. It won't have any diseases. It won't have any intervening branches. It'll have one leader. Those are the things you look for. Obviously, you look at if it's in a container, you look at the container. This is a small one. This is like a 10-gallon container. If there's a 3-inch tree in here, you know it's been in there forever. And you know it's going to be a problem. So look for a tree that's appropriate for the size of the container. You don't want to pull it out and look, but once you do pull it out and look at the roots, you're going to know whether it's going to be totally root bound or not. So those are the things you look for on a deciduous tree. On an evergreen tree, that 60% rule is 80%. So 80% of the height of the tree should be covered in foliage on an evergreen for the size that you're going to be planting. And then all the other stuff counts too. They're going to have just one lead in an evergreen typically. But the other things about the size of the box and things like that are all important. Again, these pictures would make it much better. Sometimes you'll see a dual trunk, and in the woods you'll see them growing, and people think, and you'll see them, and the trunks are together like this for 4 feet from the ground, and the 2 trunks are this big around, and all the way from here to here they're stuck together. And you look at that and you think, gosh, that's great, because they're just grown together and they've got a really, really strong bond, because it's a 4-foot bond from the bottom to the top. But the connection is only that little spot that existed when the tree was this tall and the branches were this big and stuck together. Everything else after that isn't connected at all. It's just 2 trunks that have been getting fatter and fatter and fatter, and are growing up together. And as they grow, they're actually pushing each other apart. So that connection is not a strong connection, it's a very weak connection. And one of those branches is probably going to fall down and hopefully not hit you or your brand new, F-150. So look, try to get, if you want a tree form, get a single trunk. If it's a tree that has multiple trunks, that's different. There are trees that just grow that way. If you're talking crepe myrtles or river birches or something like that, they're going to have multiple trunks. That's the way they're built. But for other trees, avoid those sharp angles and avoid the dual trunks if that's not the way the tree is supposed to be. What else? So when you pick your tree, trying to find the buttons on this thing. There we go. When you pick your tree, come on. There's no roller, no clicker. There we go. Maybe I can do it this way. There we go. What am I missing? So you picked your tree at the nursery or wherever you're getting it. A couple of things to think about when you're going to take that home with you. Now I'm going back to a former career where I was an HR director, and I would have 100 workers' comp cases at any given time, 150. Okay. Half of those at least are bad backs. And all of those happen because somebody did this. So a 25-gallon tree is going to weigh 50, 60 pounds. A 50-gallon, 25 gallons going to weigh 75, 80, 90, 100 pounds. Lift it with your legs. Don't be lifting it around like that, or you'll be one of those back cases. Something I learned, because again, I made a mistake. I didn't realize that when you expose a tree in a container to wind, it dries out very quickly. Very quickly. I bought, and typically we plant in the winter. That's the right time to plant. So end of October through February is the time to plant trees. All kinds of trees, deciduous or evergreen, that's the best time to plant. You can plant in the summer. And I replaced this beautiful redbud with this gorgeous tree that had a perfect canopy, awesome color. I picked it up at the nursery. They covered it with burlap, not plastic. Some of that burlap inched up so that the bottom part of the canopy was out in the wind for 20 minutes while I was driving. So 20 minutes while I was driving at 35, 40 miles an hour, all those leaves fell off. And it took quite a while. It survived, but it was pretty badly damaged in that short amount of time. So if you're bringing a tree with leaves, wrap it in plastic if you're going to leave it out in the wind in the back of your truck while you're carrying it. I did not realize it was that impactful and it would happen so quick, but it does. Be careful with the trunk when you're putting it in the back of your truck. You'd probably know that intuitively. So you got it to your house. You got it to your house. And what you do, if it came in a container like this, is you dig a hole just this size. And you pull the tree out and you get it real deep because you want those roots to get way down in the ground where the roots like to live and where it'll get water and all that stuff. So you plant it like that deep and you stick it in a hole that's just this size. That way it's not going to tip over once you walk away from it, right? That's how you do it, right?
No.
Thank you. No. Yes, I did that too. How many have done it though? Tell the truth. How many of you have done that before you knew anything about planting trees? I did. And they died because the good old North Carolina clay. What's the difference between North Carolina clay and a brick? Nothing. I'm going to pass this around.
The brick will eventually break down.
Brick will eventually break down. So that's the kind of stuff that you're planting in. If you just take the tree out and stick it in the same size hole that it came out of, the roots have probably started going around in a circle inside the container. And what's gonna happen is you stick it in a clay pot, basically, they just keep going around in a circle. And they get bigger, the tree gets bigger, and eventually the roots just strangle the tree. And it may last 5 years, 6 years. After that, it's probably not gonna make it. So make the hole at least twice the size of your container. 3 times is probably better, twice is good. That way the trees, the roots have a chance to go out. When you pull the tree out and you look at it, if you see that it's got girdling roots, you have to do something that intuitively seems wrong to you. Cut the heck out of them. What you'll do is you'll take your saw and you'll just cut all those roots all the way around. And feather them out if you can. Same thing on the top and the bottom. Pull them out so they're facing outward and have a chance to start growing that way. You can take almost a third of the roots out and they'll still be fine. So don't worry about doing surgery on the roots. It's really important that you do it. So you'll cut them this way, feather them out if you can, before you put it in this 2 times the size of the hole, the size of the container hole. Everybody got it? We got it? Oh,
If the root is still, if you can't make it straight, it's still kind of curving, is it gonna continue to grow curly?
yeah, but if you cut them, so if I'm cutting them every 4 or 5 inches or so, they're gonna go chasing the nutrients in the water. So the roots are gonna go out looking for those. And you've broken most of the around movement. So it's gonna go to the end where you cut it, and then they're gonna start coming out this way.
So cutting that short.
Yeah. Other people will take a saw and they'll cut it this way. And then just cut them off like that. That's harder to do. Most of the people that I work with would just cut them here. So just get a saw. The old arborist here just took a knife and just cut them. But some of the roots we see now, if they've been in the pot a long time, they're that big. You need a saw to really cut them. And don't worry about it. The tree will be fine as long as you've left 2/3 of the. And that doesn't matter whether it's a field grown tree or field grown's a little different. Let's talk about, one more thing. Too deep. Remember I said we don't go down real deep. How deep do you go? Well, ask around. I can't move, darn it. I'm a walker. This is killing me. Okay. How deep do you go?
You want to keep the level of soil where it was, because that's where the tree collar should be.
Tree collar, yes. What is a tree collar?
The place where the bark, the upper part of the tree joins the covering that makes the root system.
That's an excellent answer. The way you recognize it is, sorry people online, I'm gonna draw, I'll be right back. Tree's got a root flare. Down the bottom, there's that, right? Any tree you look at should have a flare. That's the place where the border is between where the part that wants to be in the air is and the part that wants to be in the ground. If you put it too deep, then you're sticking the part that really wants to be in the air and wants to be dry down into the wet ground. And you're just introducing a way for funguses and viruses and other worms and bugs to invade the tree and kill it. So you look for that root flare. There's also something called a main order root. When you get a very new sapling, you notice one root grows before all the rest of them. That's called a main order root. It typically wants to live very close to the top of the ground. So if you've got a bare root tree, or if you get a field grown tree and you can't really see the flare, sometimes you can poke down and find where that main order root is. You want it within an inch or two at the top of the soil that you're planting. And most people tell you plant a little high because it settles, and then you'll still be okay. So that's how you know. You want the top that's supposed to be in the air, the part that's supposed to be in the ground, Okay. So hole twice as wide, just plant to where you see that root flare right level with the top of the ground. Girdling roots, we talked about cutting those. So you've dug the hole twice the size, you put it in, it's the right level. Now, you throw in a little fertilizer, right? A little compost. How many people say yes?
Compost,
Compost, what's the difference?
quite a difference. It, not as strong as fertilizer, it's more of a natural.
It's a slower release fertilizer. Yeah, and sticking a little compost in, I don't think makes a lot of difference. And actually, the studies show that it may not make any difference at all. The one thing it does do, it makes for a looser connection so the tree may fall over if you're putting some leaves and compost in there. I think it's okay to put in a little slow release fertilizer, but what I'd suggest to you, instead of putting it in the hole, because where are the roots going to go? They're going to go where the food is, right? So you don't want them growing in, you want them going out. So put a little manure or compost around the outside to try to encourage the roots to go that way, rather than just throw it in the hole when you put the tree in the hole. So look around. How many trees out there get any fertilizer at all from us? They look fine, right? So most of the pros now are saying just put the dirt back in that came out. That's what trees like. They like the dirt that's there. If you're buying a tree from a group of plants that are from this area or like this area, so get the right tree and you don't have to worry about it. The fertilizer comes from the mulch you put around it, and the tree fertilizes itself every time it drops its leaf. So that's where the fertilizer comes from. I'm sorry. The question is, what about acidity? Meaning, does the soil make a difference? It can. Again, if you get a tree from around here, it's probably going to be fine. If you want to be really a perfectionist, and there's nothing wrong with that, you can get a soil sample and take it right down here, right around the corner there, and have your soil tested and make sure that your pH is appropriate for the plant you're putting in. And you can absolutely do that. Again, if you,
Soil test kits right on the bottom of that card.
oh yeah, look at that, they're right here. They are here. Okay, so we've got the tree in the ground. Talked about bare root trees. Bare root trees in particular, but even trees in a container, if you're going to keep them a while, you got to keep them moist. If you mulch these up and keep the mulch moist, they'll last all winter. You can plant it come March. If you let it dry out for a couple of days, the tree's already going to be starting to get in trouble, because it really doesn't have a lot of extra water to access in this little pot. Bare root, very little time at all, and they start getting very weak. So you got to keep them moist. Bare root, you may have to tamp it down more, obviously. Typically they're little if they're bare root. Tamp it down a little more. Next thing you're always gonna do, I'll get to the pruning in a minute, is you're gonna stake them all, right? Stake all the trees, right? How many people say yes? Come on, be bold. How many people say yes? You drive around town, everyone that is planted by the road is staked. Every single one. Must be the right thing to do, right? Okay. Nothing wrong with staking a tree if you do it right. 90% of the time you don't need it, especially if you're planting in the winter. If you're planting in the summer and you've got this big canopy full of leaves on a skinny tree, a little wind comes up and it's going to go right over. So you gotta stake it. You gotta stake it. In the wintertime, 90% of the time, you don't need it. Evergreens, they're gonna catch a lot more wind. Sometimes you need to stake them. What I'd suggest to you is, don't do it unless you have to, number one. I'll do it 10% of the time. And I'll just tell people, if it's leaning, call me, I'll come back and I'll straighten it up, then I'll stake it. But 90% of the time, you don't need to. If you do, get appropriate tie materials that are soft. Tree straps are the best. Don't tie a tight knot. Tie a knot that doesn't slip and leave a big loop in it so that the tree has some place to shift around. You don't need to have a real tight pull on the stakes. 3 is the right number. That's the maximum and the minimum. And 6 months later, go cut them off. That's the main thing bad that happens with staked trees is people forgot they staked them. And 2 years later, the material that they tied around the tree has girdled the tree and killed it. So that's the main, nothing wrong with staking it as long as you remember to go take the material off and you've used something that's not going to cut the tree when you tie it down. I've seen trees planted by professionals tied down with wire, fencing wire. And, luckily I caught last one of my neighbors had, but it's just going to flat kill the tree. So typically you don't need to stake it. You can staple trees. Anyone know what stapling is? It's an alternative where if this is the root ball, you drive a couple of stakes down here and then put a cross piece across the top of the root ball to hold the root ball from moving around. And then you can just forget it because the wooden stakes will rot out and you can just forget about it. And it does the same thing as staking the tree. A little more work, you have to do little screws and things like that, but not as strong as the stakes, but another way to do it. Okay. So, last thing you do. Yes.
Tree is not kind of grown, but it's balls and burlap.
Right.
Do you remove the burlap?
Great question. I didn't talk about ball and burlap. You got field grown trees, you got container grown trees. Field grown trees are growing in the field. They're just growing out like anything else growing out in the field. And the grower will come in with a giant tree spade. A tree spade is a big piece of equipment that drives blades down around the outside of the tree and pulls it up. They put it inside a wire basket, and then outside the wire basket, there's burlap or another fabric that they pull up over the top and tie together and sell you this ball and burlap tree, way heavier. So if you're going to move it yourself, bring a friend or 2 or 3, because it's like 3 times as heavy as, they plant this in a mixture that's very light. If it's grown out in that clay that you just passed around, it's heavy. Typically what you'll need to do is once you get it at the right level, all the other rules about getting it at the right level and everything else, hole bigger than the ball, you'll peel back the burlap, cut out about half the wire. So you take your snippers, cut out about half the wire, cut out all the burlap for that top half. The rest of it's okay. It'll rot out. And the roots that are the most important are the ones that are closest to the top anyway. It's shaped like a V, right? So if you go down halfway, you're really keeping 3/4 of the root ball, because the last is the smaller piece down the bottom that isn't as important anyway. You have to keep some of it or it just falls apart. And now you got a big bare root tree, and that's exposing the roots in a way you don't want to do. So cut out about half the wire, cut out about half of the fabric, and then that's how you plant it. Is that clear enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I don't have the picture, so I have to do my best. Good question. So we got it in the ground. What's left? Mulch and water. Mulch and water. Okay. Too much water is just as bad as not enough. When you sit it in that clay soil, if it stays full of water, it'll stay there a long time because it's good old North Carolina clay. You can drown the tree. So, 4 or 5 gallons of water, and then add water if you don't get any rain. You can use a soil probe. Here's my soil probe. Works great. Works great. Just keep it moist. If you let it go like this weather we've had for the last 3 weeks, no rain in the last 3 weeks. For a newly established tree, going out once a week and adding 4 or 5 gallons of water is really what you need to do. And put down the mulch. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna get a big old pile of mulch and bring it up about as tall as your knee. And make a mulch volcano all around your tree up about that tall, right? Everybody knows where we're going with this now, right? I'm explaining to you how to kill a tree. You see it all over town. People think they're doing a great thing for their tree when they get a lot of mulch. Mulch is good. Mulch is good. But piling it up against the tree, if you go around and look at some of those, you're gonna see all kinds of diseases affecting the tree. The bark's falling off, it's turning brown, it's mushy. Mulch is just dirt. So the same reason you don't plant the tree too deep, you don't mulch it up too high. It's the same thing that will kill the tree. What does mulch do for you? Why do we even mulch it? Who cares?
Retain the water.
What's that?
Helps to retain the water.
It helps retain the water. What else does it do?
The weeds.
It keeps the weeds away. That's right. It shades out the weeds. What else does it do?
It breaks down into the soil.
There's your fertilizer. There's your fertilizer. The mulch breaks down and becomes fertilizer for the tree. Sure. What else does it do?
Helps regulate soil temperature.
Helps regulate the temperature. That can make a big difference, especially for certain kinds of trees. Okay. It helps keep the rain from hitting the ground and washing the ground away. What's the thing that no one remembers, but it could be the most important thing? Wind? Yeah, I guess it retains the moisture, so yeah.
Barb said it.
What's-
Speak up, Barb.
Keeps the mower away.
Thank you. Thank you. It keeps the mower from running over your tree. If you see the number of trees I see, there's a big number that have either been completely knocked down or have a big gash cut out of them because the mulch was put down in a nice ring around the tree the right way, nothing next to the tree at all, but around it, nice big tire all the way out to the edge of the canopy. First time the mower comes around, it takes off that much. Next time they take off that much more. Next time they take off that much more. Pretty soon, the mulch pile is only this big. And it's all been pushed over next to the tree. And then it gets that big and then the mower hits it and takes your tree out. So a really effective thing that the mulch does is just kind of guide that mower away from your trees. You think that's not important, but it's amazing how many trees you'll see that have that happen to it. So, tree maintenance. Talked a lot about planting. That's only the first step. Mulch, mulch, mulch. Water, we talked about that. Pruning. When you first get the tree, brand new tree, right from the nursery. Let's see, who's planted a lot of trees? Y'all have planted a lot of trees. Debbie's planted a lot of trees. Who else has planted a lot of trees? Okay, let's see what you say. How often are you gonna prune a tree when you put it in the ground?
I'm gonna do any corrective pruning that needs to be done when I plant it.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna leave it alone for a year or two.
Yeah, yeah.
And come back and do more corrective pruning if needed.
Exactly. So right when you plant it, you may take off that second leaf, intervening branches, broken branches, diseased branches. You'll take out all of that stuff. And quite often you'll need to do an amount of correction, even straight right out of the nursery. You shouldn't have to do much. The nursery should have all that done already, but they don't always. All those things are problems that need to be corrected to try to get the right structure for the tree.
Put that on the little sucker.
Yeah. Not necessarily. Some plants like crepe myrtles sucker like crazy. That's just the way they are. Jane magnolias, lots of trees will sucker.
Supposed to cut.
Sure. Unless you want more branches and want to have a bush. I mean, you create the shape that you want for the tree to be healthy and to be attractive to your environment. Yes,
But on large shade trees, you can have temporary branches that you leave on the lower trunk, and it helps that trunk develop its taper. So you leave them for a few years, but you prune them off before they get big. You know, you want them about, you don't wanna make a big wound when you're cutting those off, but it will help that trunk develop its taper. So like oak trees, maple trees, the bigger shade trees you can do.
Okay.
And if they put out little sprouts, you know, with the base or something that you don't want, when they're little, usually they'll just snap off, you can rub them off. Sorry, John.
no, you're great. You're great. I needed a breather. Thank you. I could draw, but I hate to get away from the people online.
Raise that screen.
Can we do that? Is it just raised? Do you have to get one?
No. But
Yeah, I'll let you do it. Yeah, I have a really good example here of exactly what Debbie was talking about. Let's see, is there a fat, let me get a fat marker. Here's an example of how to handle it. I bought a couple of pecan trees they were really crappy trees. I mean, that's all it was. I bought them mail order, and one of them had a lead and then a couple of branches that came off at about the same spot. And the lead was actually wounded here badly. And it was smaller than the other two branches. And then the trunk came down like, this isn't gonna work too well. The trunk kind of came down like this. So, what do? Okay. Before you do any pruning, the very first step is you establish a budget. The budget should always be less than 30% of the crown of the tree. So the absolute maximum I could ever take out of this is about 30%. So if I take that off all by itself, it's probably more than 30%. This is the sickly one, okay, but it's the one in the middle. So here's what I did. I bent the tree a little bit this way from the bottom as I planted it, and then I pulled this branch here to the side, so the tree kind of looked like this. Right? Then I did some selective pruning here and here to stunt the growth of these two branches, because I can only take off 30%. So I stunted those a little bit so that this was turning into the leaf. This will eventually straighten out till it's almost perfectly straight. So I took off quite a bit of this and that to stump them first year. This year, I'm going to take off some more. I may take off this one or that one completely. And again, they're at a bad angle too, okay? And this one was starting to have, now this one's starting to get some very nice branches coming up like this. So after I stunted this one, I may take out a piece of that. I might even take that all the way out if it's not too much. Let this one keep feeding the trunk for another year, because if I take that out, it's gonna be more than 30%. And then maybe next year I'll cut that one out. This is only about 2.5 or 3 feet up. So then I'll take that one off. This is about 5 feet, and then I'll have a good tree. But it took, let me shut that down. It took 3 or 4 years to get there, but I ended up with a good tree. So your rules are 30% is maximum. 30% is a maximum. Another rule, when you prune at a node. So if this branch, when I do some stunting pruning here, I'm not going to cut it in the middle here. I'm going to cut it right at one of the nodes. even if you're cutting little bitty branches, take it back to where you've got a leaf bud coming out. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so prune at the node. 30% maximum. If you've got a big branch that you're cutting.
Is that marker dead?
Yeah,
This
it's
one
all-
might be better.
yeah, it's kind of light.
Yeah, it's yellow, but it shows up. Maybe it shows up better on what you're using. No,
That show okay? Can you see that?
Yeah.
You see it? Okay. So you got a pretty big branch here. Ideally, you don't want to cut a branch, if you can avoid it, that's more than a third the size of the branch it's attached to. Now, when they're little, it's not that big. But when they get big, it's better not to cut those if you can avoid it. If you do cut it, there's a process called a three cut method. And right here, you'll see something called the branch collar. Talked about a root collar down here. The branch collar kind of comes out a little bit. That's the growing tissue between those two connections, right? You're gonna want to end up making your cut close to that branch collar. But you don't want to just come in and cut there. If you start cutting this down, then the weight of this branch, oh, thank you.
throw those away.
The weight of this branch is going to pull down. So I've cut right here. The weight of the branch is gonna break this when I get about 3/4 of the way through, and it'll tear all the way down here. And you want to avoid that. The branch collar is the healing tissue. So you want the cut to eventually be here. And the way you get there is you cut underneath first for a little ways,
It's not working either.
and then you cut off out here. And when it breaks, it'll break back to this undercut. That's as far as it'll break. And you can come back through and cut at the branch collar. That branch collar it's the healing tissue again. So it'll start closing in on where you made the cut, and it'll heal much better than anywhere else that you cut. You always want to go back to a node, which on a big tree is the branch collar. On a little tree is where the little stems or little buds are coming. Yes,
Same thing if you're working with a dead branch.
yeah,
I've got one, yeah, it's dead, so okay,
well, I mean,
it's dead.
yeah, but if it's still connected to the tree,
It is.
then it can still tear down here to the good part. And yeah, same thing with that branch. They tend not to tear because the wet wood tears more than the dry wood. They tend to tear less, but it doesn't hurt to cut underneath and just make sure. Never, ever, 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 ever. Did I say never? Never top a tree. Never top a tree. Doesn't matter if it's a crepe myrtle. Okay, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Here's the reason for it. And again, I wish I had these wonderful pictures in the presentation. Just imagine these wonderful pictures. Spent all this time getting it, but you'll see it if you want to look at the presentation later. They're good examples of all these things. But if you have a tree,
Mr. John,
yes,
did you try the black mark?
That's the brand new markers that just came out of the box.
probably the artist. Okay, so if you have a tree, there we go, better?
Yes, sir.
But now you can see how bad my drawing is. Now I'm kind of embarrassed. Okay. There's branches coming off this way. And I'm gonna put one more big branch coming this way, with some branches coming off. Okay, if you just top the tree. And you'll see this happening all over town. Every place that you make a cut, the latent buds within the bark will start sprouting. So you are gonna see growth around where you make the cut. That's natural for a tree. And a lot of people say, well, it's fine, it's growing, it's all good. And you'll see these little little new branches coming off everywhere. But the problem is, again, you wanna cut on the node, right? We talked about cutting right where the branch collar is, because that's where the healing tissue is. If you don't, and you just cut out in the middle, a lot of times you go out there and you touch it, it's just soft, because it's rotting, it's got funguses infecting it. Because it doesn't have that healing tissue around it to start healing it over. So you get a bad area here with branches growing off from it. The branches get bigger, they just break off because they're attached to this cut. All this is dead tissue. And it's kind of attached here on the surface of it, and it tends just to break off. So even if you're talking about something like a crepe myrtle that people just love to cut off and then let it grow up
But you see it
from the top. I'm sorry?
everyone does.
They sure do. They sure do. But this is what's gonna be happening. Now, crepe myrtles happen to be pretty bulletproof. I mean, they break a lot anyway, and they tend to be very hardy around here. They tend to keep growing, and suckers come up and replace them. They're pretty hardy tree. But first of all, I think it's ugly when they do that, because it gets all those spindly tops on the beautiful branches below. A more professional cut would be to go back to some of the places where some of the branches, like if I think that one's too tall and this one's a little shorter, then I might take that one off there. And then let this one grow. And then later I may take, it's hard to take the lead off, sometimes you have to. And let another branch take over, if it's just too tall for your space. But to the degree you can, you wanna cut on the nodes. Topping, it's bad. You'll hear about pollarding. Do everyone know what pollarding is? It's kind of similar to topping, except, again, when they're pollarding a tree, they're careful to try to make the cuts on the branch collars. Like in Europe, you'll see them all over the place. You have these sycamores, these plane trees over the tops of the road. And they'll have what's called a pollard head, where they'll come to the end of a branch and they'll keep cutting it right here at this one spot. And the branches will come out, and then they'll cut them out, and then they'll grow out again. They'll cut them off and they'll grow out, and they'll come back again. The difference is they started at a node where they have some healing tissue to work from. In Japan, they even grow lumber that way. They'll take a tree and pollard it and harvest the lumber, and then they'll let the branches come up again off the same trunk, and they'll harvest the lumber again. And they'll do it 2 or 3 or 4 times. That's pollarding, which is different from just coming through and just ripping the top off. Pretty well. Okay, so pruning. That's main things about pruning. 1/3 maximum. Cut at the node, and take care of your tree. You're trying to build that right structure. You're trying to pick the branches that have that nice union. You're trying to get rid of the co-leads. You're trying to get rid of the intervening branches. If it gets big and full, wind can blow it over, so you want to thin out the canopy a little bit. Yes.
So I saw where the power company drives down the road with this industrial hedge flipper.
Yep.
Like 50 feet tall. And
Yep.
just cuts half of the tree with it.
Yep.
Never seen it before until I moved here. How bad? Is that as bad as I think it is?
What does it look like?
Looks like shit.
I mean, you're just hacking the heck out of a tree. I
That's
mean,
all.
and you know, they gotta do it because
Right.
that's why for your own trees, you don't want to plant under a power line, because that's what they're gonna do. You don't want to plant too close to a building, because you're gonna have to cut it away from the building at a point if you don't want carpenter ants in your walls. So, plant the right tree in the right spot, prune it as it's coming along, so you don't have to think about those kinds of things.
Is there any way you can try to recover when that's done?
Um,
I mean, it's brutal.
yeah.
I don't know if people would do it.
Well, if you, the state's not gonna pay an arborist to prune a mile of highway. So, they're just gonna do it. The trees that grow out there tend to be pretty durable. Mother Nature will do a pretty good job on a tree too. They get struck by lightning, they get, the branches fall off and, trees that are built for the area are pretty durable. But you don't wanna hack them up in your yard. I mean, it's just ugly if nothing else. Yes,
Online question, when is the best time of year to prune?
thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. What do y'all think? Raise your hands. How many people say, March through June? How many people say July through September? Nobody. You're right. Okay. In the winter. Prune when it's working on the roots during the winter. It's working on the canopy in the growing season. That's typically for trees, that's the time to prune. Sometimes you have to because it's got issues, but that's the right time to prune. Did you hear that online? Okay. Okay, fertilization. We talked about fertilizing when you plant. Do you need to fertilize your trees? Typically not. They fertilize themselves. As a matter of fact, fertilizer often, and we plant trees in our yards because we have to fertilize the grass. Grass needs fertilizer, and the tree gets a lot of that. And what happens is a lot of tree, what's the word I'm thinking of? Pests love the nitrogen. So you're adding more nitrogen than the tree needs. And what really loves it is the gloomy scale that gets on your tree, or the fungus that's getting on your tree. They love that extra nitrogen. So adding a lot of fertilizer to your trees probably going to be worse than better. So when people are growing them in the pots, they over treat trees when they're growing in the nursery. They pesticide the heck out of them to give them fertilizer, grow them fast, so they can sell them quick. But when it's in your yard, you typically don't need it. Yes.
Is that true for an evergreen also?
Is it also, does it make a difference if it's synthetic fertilizer or just natural? Because we have several trees where a bunch of chickens are running around and they're fertilizing naturally.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, now the nitrogen's nitrogen, phosphorus. Debbie may, disagree with me. The trouble is, plant doesn't care. Typically the organic fertilizers are more slow release. A lot of times you'll get it very, very concentrated. Like the stuff you put on your lawn in the winter, very high nitrogen content, very high. And that's introducing a lot of fertilizer in a big hurry into a tree that really doesn't need it. Grass needs it, but not the tree. Okay, cool questions. This is awesome. All right, getting down toward the end. Integrated pest management. Not going to talk a lot about this. A lot of bugs get in the trees. Most of them are fine. Back to the same message always. Get the right tree for what you're looking for. Don't get a mango. I'm not going to go get a saguaro cactus and put it in my yard because it's not the right thing for here. You get the right plant for our climate. Climate's changed. We're in a different climate zone than we were a year ago. Right kind of soil, right kind of climate, right kind of moisture and all that kind of stuff. If you get a tree that's built for here, chances are it's going to be okay. Every tree is going to have some bug issues. There's something like 400 caterpillars that love oak leaves. Okay, so you got an oak, there's going to be things taking bites out of it. That's just going to happen, and that's fine. Usually, that's going to be all right. If you're worried, take a picture of it, send it down to Debbie or for the people down here, and they'll help you identify what the pest is and whether it's something to worry about and what you can do if it is something to worry about. There's just so many of them. There's no way to even begin to talk about pest management here, other than don't get too upset if you see some things going on. And again, you'll see some situations where the bark's just falling off. You'll see oozing coming out of the bark of your tree, where you just know that does not look good at all. You know, take a picture and come down and talk to Debbie, and she'll help advise you. There are some things you can treat easily, other things not so much. So I'm just not going to go through that because it's just too big an issue now. I do have a bunch of resources that are going to be at the end of the presentation. Yes,
You said our zone has changed in the last year? What is
we,
it now?
we were 7A to 7B, now we're 8A. So we dropped the whole zone. That's several degrees. Dropped, we went up a zone, so several degrees. There are a couple of things I will, TreesUnion.org has a lot of good material in it. Arbor Day has a lot of good material in it. If you want to learn about the trees, the North Carolina Plant Gardener Toolbox. And again, you'll see it in the presentation, just go pull it up. You can look up a tree, it'll tell you how big it is, what the leaves look like, what the flowers look like, how to take care of it, what pests it gets, how to, you know, all those kinds of things. Can you eat it as a poison? All those kinds of things. If again, you're not going to find a mango in there because it's a North Carolina toolbox, but great reference for you. If you're just wondering, what do I want to get here? I think I might want to put a Zelkova in here. How big does Zelkova get? You can look it up and it'll be there by either the scientific name or the normal names. It'll come up. As I said, you can get a lot of satellite views. The county GIS will show you your property lines, which can be helpful. You can't depend on those down to the inch. You need to survey for that, but they're going to be pretty darn close. NAIP is the official. My daughter works for NASA, so I have my extra secret expert that helps me with these things. But that's one of the official satellite views that lets you do some pretty fancy things with views from up there. GIS is helpful because of the property lines. I just use Google Earth Pro. It tells you, again, it's got a measurement tool on it, lets you see, you can look at it from angles. So you can see different angles. I'm sorry?
Which one were you talking about?
I usually just use Google Earth Pro. Google Earth Pro, totally free. The satellites they use pass at different times. So sometimes if you look at 2 or 3 different tools, you'll see one that has a tree in it and one that doesn't, because they took them in different years. And so you might want to look at it and just check that it's fairly recent, fairly current. There's another tool that I'm really going to recommend to you called iTree, itreetools.org, itreetools.org. No dots anywhere except for the one, itreetools.org. And you can put in your address and it'll ask you if your building has air conditioning and heating, and you click yes or no or no. Then you draw the points of your building, and then you can pick out the trees that you want of the size that you want and stick them in places around the building, and it'll show you the ideal places to put them. And then you can push a button and it'll tell you how much you're going to save on your power bills, and it will model out how fast that tree is going to grow. Now, is it accurate? Hell no. Because, there's a tin shed is totally different from a well-insulated building. But it's directionally right. It's directionally right. And you can kind of see, because it'll show you the tree growing over the years. It'll, you put in the number of years that you want, and you can see what it's going to look like later. And it shows you where to put it and can kind of give you an idea on if you really want to make a difference in the heating cost of your house or the cooling cost of your house, you can kind of tell what will be helpful for you. So Cool. I just think it's a cool tool. I don't trust the exact numbers, but directionally it helps you visualize what you wanna do. Yes.
What about the resource you were talking about, that kind of calculates the sun exposure to show you, partial shade?
Oh,
Is that off of NASA?
no, if you wanna know what a tree likes,
No, for your, like, say you have an existing stand
mhm.
and you wanna see how the sun hits, so you know if you're putting in other plants.
trees
Are
gonna,
you in partial shade, or, how many hours you have,
oh,
as well as seasonality.
Yeah.
I got the
Yeah.
impression that there was a website that kind of gave some of
There
that.
are some apps for that, but I don't know what the names of them are.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe you just did an internet search.
Yeah.
Sun tracker or something like that, you
Yeah.
probably get come up.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, my app is,
Just,
you walk out at 5 o'clock and see where the sun is and kind of go by that. One thing that it's good to know is the sun's always gonna be in the south. It's never gonna get past because the way the earth is tilted in the northern hemisphere. In the summer, it may get a little past the straight up, but not much. It's almost always gonna be toward the south. So the sun, most of the sun's gonna be coming from that way. Afternoon sun tends to be more damaging than the morning sun, tends to be hotter. So the west and the south tend to give you the most sun in general all the time. So if you've got a house that faces the south and you have a sun-loving plant, you can put on the south side, shade-loving plant be on the other side of the house in general. But if you need to know, you just go out and look. And that plant toolbox will tell you whether the tree likes partial shade, full shade, or sun. Sure. And a lot of things, everything needs sun. People says, can I plant this out of the sun? No. Everything needs some sun. It's gotta have light to live. It's a plant. But there are some things that need quite a lot of shade. Japanese maples, typically hostas, things like that, need a lot of shade. But everything needs some sun. But good questions. Love these questions. That's all I've got. Any other questions?
Mistletoe, how serious did the tree start showing a lot of mistletoe growth in it?
I have what I think is an answer. Debbie may correct me. Mistletoe. Yeah, I don't, oh, yes, she was asking about mistletoe. And I think the gist of the question is, when you see mistletoe on your tree, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Is it good? Is it bad? And do you need to worry about it? Is that the?
I've got,
Uh,
where, that it means the tree may be failing.
That's, I believe that is true. Any parasite, and mushrooms will tell you the same thing. People will evaluate the mushrooms growing around trees because mushrooms are eating the decomposing tissues. So if there's a lot of decomposing tissue, there's going to be a lot more mushrooms. And I believe that a healthy tree will have less mistletoe than a sick tree. But I'm not, do you agree with that, Debbie?
Pardon?
An unhealthy tree may have more mistletoe than a healthy tree.
A stress tree.
Yeah.
Too much water, too deep plantings, all of those stressors you talked about
Yeah.
tonight, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so,
But, I mean, this is an established 80-foot tree,
Mhm.
so.
Doesn't Ed have a gun?
Yeah.
I came from Arkansas, we used to shoot it out of the tree. But it penetrates, it grows roots into the tree, so it is a parasite on the tree. To do that. Yeah, it's right in front yard. And you don't need to be climbing on the ladder either. No.
so for the people online, the answer is Debbie validated that a stressed tree is more likely to have more mistletoe on it. And it is a sign of stress.
Yeah. But it's still got its roots in there, it may grow right back.
Yeah.
Now, eventually, it can, if it takes over the whole tree, the tree can die from it. but that takes a long, long time. I go through the CVS drive-through up here at Hilltop, and there's a small tree right, almost straight out of the drive-through there on the side of that pharmacy that's loaded up with mistletoe. And it's in a corner, so it's getting heat from the asphalt. Its root system is restricted. It's not getting any water. I don't think it has any mulch. I don't remember that piece, but it may have been hit by a weed trimmer or lawnmower. Things like that.
That is an important thing that I didn't include, but I'm glad you brought it up. There's a time to take a tree down. Yeah, I went out and got some tree cookies. They call them cookies, slices of trees, looking for giant ones for the science center when they put it in. And I was dismayed to hear how many tree services told me, oh, I just had a 5-foot tree yesterday. And it took me forever to find one that they still had, that they hadn't chipped up. But it dismayed me how many giant trees were coming down. But that's when they come down. It's when they're old and when they're starting to rot out and reaching the end of their life. They are big trees. And it's sad to lose them because they're beautiful. But there's a time when they're hanging over your house and getting weak and full of mistletoe, and you gotta think about taking them out. That's part of the deal. Any other questions?
We have, a pretty wooded lot. And we have a lot of small trees growing in between. Is it necessary to really take those out?
The question is, if you have a wooded lot and you have a lot of volunteers growing up from the seeds, do you need to take them out? Depends on what you want. I mean, yeah, that's kind of a hard question. For aesthetics, sometimes people want to take them out. You also got to think about fire. If it gets good and dry, and if they're close to your house, you got to be kind of considerate about fire. But in general, in the woods, nobody takes them out. So it's a hard question. How would you answer?
How large is your property?
We got 5 acres, but we have trees on there that are like, 100 feet, a lot of, really big ones, and then all the little volunteers.
Are you in the county or the city?
In county.
Okay, call Gavin, or there's two gentlemen that are rangers in the North Carolina Forestry office. It's across, and the office is across the hall. Just look up Union County Forest Ranger and it should pop up. But they'll come out there and walk the property, and they'll say, these are good trees, these are not, take these out, leave these.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's
And
true.
that's a free service. They,
Yeah.
they won't charge you for doing that.
Okay.
But it's larger property. They're not gonna come to a 1/4 acre lot
Okay.
and do that.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone online heard that, but the recommendation is if you have questions about trees growing on your property, call the county, who will send local foresters out to give you some advice on what to do. They're not going to do it on a 1/4 acre lot in town. Although if you have serious trees in town, our county arborist may come down and talk to you.
Yeah, if you live in the city limits of Monroe, or the county contracts him out to most of the municipalities in the city, in the county. Keith O'Haron is our urban forester, and he will come out and say, this is a healthy tree, it can be left, or if it's in a historic district, he'll say yes or no, you can or cannot cut it down. But he'll come out, and he's got a more extensive training than I do as far as trees and their hazards and that type of thing. And
That-
so he works in the city of Monroe, Waxhaw, Indian Trail, Marshville, the different ones.
And he is the PhD.
Yeah, yeah.
He is the
Keith
PhD,
O'Hare.
yeah.
Keith O'Hare.
And if you're lucky enough, you come out for one of our TreesUnion things, he may give you a class.
That's true. He'll be out there. He'll be out there. Yes.
Pine needles and regular hardwood mulch. Is there a preference?
The question is there a preference between pine needles and hardwood mulch? I like hardwood. I'll tell you what I like. I like cheap. If I'll have Chip Drop come out for free or $40 and give me 10 yards of mulch. But again, you have to think about what you're buying the mulch for. You want something that it covers the ground to help with the erosion, help control the moisture, help control the weeds. Generally, the hardwood's gonna do more for most of those things than the light, longleaf pine needles. You know, I kind of like the hardwood.
Yeah, the pine needles are pretty. A lot of people like them and they're pretty abundant in this area, but they don't add as much organic matter to the soil as the hardwood chips do.
Put them on your blueberries. Put them around
Your blueberries, yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
It's fun chip rock, people sometimes.
Chip drop is, it's kind of changing now, so I can't tell you exactly what the situation is now, but we've got a lot of tree services around. They gotta do something, they chip up a giant oak tree in your yard, what are they gonna do with all those chips? They're happy to drop them off in your yard, they're not gonna drop you a yard, but if you want 10 yards, you know, in the back of a dump truck, they may give you 10 yards of mulch for nothing. Or I think last I saw was about 40 bucks. Just go to chipdrop.com and they may come around and give you a bunch of free mulch. It's green, so it may acidify your soil a little bit. But I mean, it's hardwood mulch and it's typically not double, what do you call it? Double hammered, which means you may get some bigger sticks, bigger than what you're going to get in the bags at Lowe's. So you'll get some bigger sticks, but tree doesn't care. It's just
You know how much you're gonna get, because we get it out here for the teaching garden. And I have it set up to where if you don't give them any money, the tree companies have to pay to be on this online service. If you don't give them any, they have to pay like $20. So if you don't give them any money, you may not get chips as quick as somebody like me, who every time they bring me a load, they ding my credit card for $40. And usually within a couple of weeks, when I put in a request, because you have to put in a request online, they'll bring a load and dump it. And they text me or they call me and they tell me they're coming. So it's real easy, but you may get cedar, you might get oak, you might get maple, you might get something if they've been putting it along a utility with poison ivy in it, which is not really an issue. It's not gonna pop up in your garden, but if you're spreading it, it's a possibility you could get it that way.
so wear gloves.
Yeah.
Uh,
But we use it out here and it's a great free service, but hey, if you see tree companies working in your neighborhood, go chase them down and ask them, hey, do you need somewhere to dump those chips? I've done that before, and if they're close to you and don't have a piece of equipment on the back of the truck where they're putting the chips, they may bring them right to you. I've chased down the city of Monroe utility guys one day, because they were printed right on my street when I went home for lunch. And so I asked them, that day they dumped about 2 yards. The next day I came home and they dumped the whole truckload. So, you know, but they were free. And to me, I'm like, John here, that's the best way.
And be careful, we had the people that were doing it in Charlotte, and they just loved our place so much, we had to finally tell them to stop.
Stop.
Free to our church. I mean, it was like 3 loads a day.
Oh, when I lived up in Virginia, I had a 5-acre piece of property, and my neighbor's nephew had a tree company cutting service. And so I hooked up with him, and I had 2 windrows, 100 foot long of wood chips, because he just kept bringing them. But by the time I would get up there and use some of them, it was nice compost, you know, that was great.
and you gotta think, if you're buying bags at Lowe's, that's 200 bucks worth of mulch.
Yeah.
So,
And, you know, the bags are easier oftentimes because you can place them in the landscape. And on smaller properties like mine, I have to move stuff with a wheelbarrow, you know, if you got the loose stuff. So that's another thing to consider.
good questions. Another question, yes.
I have a pear tree that's almost 6 years old, but has never bloomed. Is there like something wrong, or do you have that too? I mean, I thought it was self-pollinated.
Self-pollinated.
Yeah, I've got a pair that that bloomed last year, this year, I think we had a storm, because I had little pears and they disappeared. So lots of things can affect the blooms, you know, late frost, not enough water, too much water. Hard to say. What would you say?
Diseases.
Diseases, yeah.
Diseases. It's hard to say, you know, it depends. That's a common answer in extension,
Yeah.
or anybody who diagnoses plants, because without knowing, maybe it was planted too deep. Maybe if you've been fertilizing it, you put too much fertilizer on it. You know, oftentimes plants, if they're over fertilized, won't stop the fruit or flowering fruit. So you can, I didn't bring any cards in here, but I'll go get some. You can email me photos and I can look at it and see. NC State, if you just Google NC State and pear problems, or Clemson is also a wonderful resource. Clemson has great fact sheets. So Google Clemson and pears, and that usually they have one publication that'll talk about growing them, and then they may have another publication that talks about problems. Somebody else had
For
it.
sure.
Yeah, can you, say I wanted a tree that was just growing and I wanted to plant it in my yard. Can you give me some direction on how to take that tree that's growing and
Get as much root as you can.
get as much root as I can?
Yeah. I mean,
How big is it?
You know,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If it's that small, he could dig it up. and
Oh,
do
yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
like he says, get as much root as you
Yeah.
can. If it's something bigger that you want to move, go in about 6 months before and root prune closer into the plant, and that forces new growth in closer, and then you can come back in a few months and dig it up and move it to have a more robust root system in close to the trunk.
how far are you moving it?
several hundred yards.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a.
Yeah.
A small
segue.
one, the edge of the woods,
Yeah.
and I'll move it to another edge.
You know, here's what I've done. You know, a tree spade goes in with blades on all sides and pulls it up. I'll do that with the shovel. Try to get out as far as I can get and just cut around it. And I'll put 2 shovels underneath it and pull them together so the root ball doesn't just fall all apart. Or pull it onto a piece of burlap or cardboard and then drag the cardboard to try to keep it from just falling apart. If it's wet, it's gonna hold together a little better, but not too wet, you just moist so it kind of sticks together. That's what I've done. But if it gets bigger than that, it gets real hard to keep those roots together. I wouldn't try anything over that top. Yeah.
Yeah, just as an observation, one year we bought lots of big trees.
Mhm.
And tried planting them out in an area that was very hard to keep them watered, and having spent a lot of money, they would die. Start small. I mean, to your point, I mean, I live saplings, seedlings, I live things this high sometimes, stick them in a pot for a year. Make sure they don't get hot bad.
Right.
Then you can plant them on, and then.
There's just a comment, people online about planting big trees. If you're not willing to keep up with them and water them for a couple of years, they may die on you. Whereas small trees tend to be pretty resilient for a while. Yeah. They do catch up.
Presentation will be posted on the International, Master Gardener, Union County Master Gardener Volunteer Association website, the mouthful. But it will be posted, and I assume your slides have your resources on it with
Yes.
links for them that
Yes.
you'll be able to access.
Okay.
I don't know if he has this resource on there. I ran into my office thinking I might have enough to give everyone one of these tonight, but I only have one. But the North Carolina Urban Forest Council has some tree-related publications. This is the Tree Owner's Manual. This is one I only have one of, but they also have one on trees and utilities and then storm readiness. You know, what can you do if you know a hurricane's gonna hit us to prepare your trees for storm or after the storm to help clean up? So I have a question. I have one of these I'm gonna give away. You raise your hand. How many trees has John planted?
10,000.
10,000. You get the book.
Picture. Take a picture of that.
I'm sure he'll.
There was an online website.
Wait, we're not done yet.
When to prune, should you, use anything on the exposed cut?
Oh, good question, yeah. Last question, this is an online question. After you prune, do you paint it? Do you paint the wound? The answer is no.
Yeah.
No, they did that for years and years and years. Our grandparents did it, our parents did it, our great uncles and aunts did it, our older brothers did it. But now they're saying, don't mess with it. Just cut in the right spot, the right way. And you don't need to worry about that. So glad you brought that up.
That's why you're cutting in the winter time when the insects on.
Right. Right.
Okay, just a couple of quick announcements coming up next month. We have, Angela Johnson, one of our, own extension master gardeners. She's gonna talk about how to minimize the use of chemicals in the garden. So that should be a good one, because she's an organic gardener. And then, so that's October the 2nd. And then October the 18th is our plant sale coming up. I had some flyers on the back table for that. And November the 6th, another master gardener, Sandy Yacup's gonna talk about hydroponics for home gardeners. So how to get your feet wet with hydroponics, is what she's talking.
Is that,
So that should be a good one.
that's
too.
all on the Master Gardener
Uh-huh.
website? Cool. And October 11th, Dickerson Park in Monroe, come plant a tree.
Soil test kits are up here. I'll run get some business cards in case anybody wants them. Do you have a business card, John?
My business card is my phone.
Oh, okay.
But you got. My name and number on the presentation, so if y'all want to call. We're gonna be out of pocket off and on for a while, but I'll get back with you as soon as I can. Thank y'all online. I hope that was okay. Yeah.